What is going on, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of EBC Sports International. I'm Michael Hudson coming at you from Seattle, Washington, and I will be your host today. So we have another action-packed episode for you all, but before we dive into our main topics on today's show, I can't forget to introduce to you all our lovely sports panel. So first and foremost, we have Ken Cruz from Washington, D.C. How you doing, Ken?
Yo, Dodgers, please get that number one spot. We don't need you in the wild card. We need you in the 7-game series, please.
It's still baseball season, or? Oh, yeah, it is.
Sure is, sir. They're going back-to-back. FYI.
Oh, man, didn't even notice. Next, from Toronto, Canada, we have Albert Say. How you doing, Albert?
How's it going, Mike? Blue Jays, opposite end of the spectrum. Please make the wild card. It's a tight race with the Yankees and the Red Sox. And just dying to get in. Let's go, Blue Jays.
It's funny. We have so many baseball mentions and no baseball topics tonight. So this is your chance, guys.
If Seattle was a good team, sir, I know it would be the first topic. Let's just FYI.
Oh, it would be. Yeah, I would have mentioned it immediately. But yeah, we're still down in the dumps. And lastly, last but not least, we have from Las Vegas, Nevada, joining us today is Brian Sanson.
What up, everybody? Vegas got a hockey team. We got a brand new football team. All that we got left is an NBA team. Come on, Clippers. Come on, Warriors. Come on over.
Baseball team too, right?
Yeah, and the baseball team. The NBA come first.
Gotcha. So, hey, thanks for joining me, guys, and thanks for everybody for joining us this week. And just a reminder, we are by no means experts, but rather a group of friends who are obsessed with the world of sports. So, but before we begin with our main topics, we have a few stories to share with you all from around the globe. First, Ken has some NBA news for us. Ken.
Yes, sir. So after 15 seasons, sharpshooter J.J. Redick announced his retirement from the NBA this past Tuesday. Redick, who's 37 years old, played with 6 different NBA teams. He was drafted by the Orlando Magic with the 11th pick in the 2006 draft. He then played for the Clippers, 76ers, Pelicans, Bucks, and Mavericks. In his career, he averaged 12.8 points per game and made 1,950 career three-pointers, which ranks him 15th all-time in NBA history. Redick is an all-time great college player, as he is still the all-time leading scorer for Duke with 2,769 points in his college career. He also still remains as Duke's all-time leader in 3 points made with 457 and free throw percentage at a crazy 91.2%. In his senior year, he was the AP Player of the Year and averaged 26.8 points per game. One of his career highlights was his career-high 40-point game versus for the Clippers in an overtime win against Houston in 2016. But he's best known for his high percentage buckets as a supporting cast member in Dwight Howard's Magic team that made it to the 2009 Finals, which they lost to the LA Lakers, by the way. Just always got to put that in there. J.J. Redick does have a career post-NBA already. Does have a career post-NBA, as he's one of the premier podcasters covering the league and frequently has big-time guests on his show. Best of luck to JJ. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate it. Next, we're going to go to the NFL, where Brian has a story for us concerning last night's game between the Houston Texans and the Carolina Panthers. What do you have for us, Brian?
Right, Mike. Thursday Night Football showed a glimpse of what new scenery can do to a struggling QB. And it also showed a team that needs to pick up their pace offensively if they want to keep up with the rest of the league. The Carolina Panthers defeated the Houston Texans 24-9 in what was a very comfortable win for the Panthers. The Texans were never really close to making Carolina worry about going home with their 3rd straight win of the season. DJ Moore had 126 receiving yards and 8 receptions, and Sam Darnold had 304 passing yards, and the Panthers' defensive line looked as strong as ever. But that wasn't without its downfalls. Star running back Christian McCaffrey left the game with a hamstring injury, sidelining him for at least, quote, a few weeks. Panthers rookie cornerback J.C. Horn was also lost to injury with a broken foot that may be season ending. And on Houston's end, rookie QB Davis Mills struggled to move the football in the first half and ended the game with 168 yards and 1 passing touchdown. Wide receiver Brandon Cooks led the receiving corps with 112 yards and 9 receptions. And in addition, Houston's run game only combined for 42 yards. More football to come as we continue week 3 of the regular season. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, B. Appreciate it, man. Lastly, we're going to stay with the NFL, and Albert has some injury news for us. What's going on, Albert?
Yeah, Mike, with 2 weeks down and the NFL officially in its 3rd week, quarterbacks around the league have had a rough start with a number of starting QBs going down to injury. First, Miami Dolphins starter Tua Tagovailoa was carted into the locker room in their game against the Buffalo Bills. Now, initial tests showed no damage, but it was later revealed that Tagovailoa suffered fractured ribs and will be considered week to week. The Dolphins will look to Jacoby Brissett for their week 3 game against the Raiders. The Bears starter Andy Dalton came up limping in a non-contact injury against the Bengals. Initial tests on Dalton's knee showed no structural damage, but has since been diagnosed with a bone bruise. This now paves the way for rookie Justin Fields to showcase his talents in his first career start in Week 3 against the Browns. And after a stellar start in the first half of the game against the Browns, Texans' Tyrod Taylor suffered a hamstring injury that would take him out for the rest of the game. Taylor is expected to be out for at least 3 weeks, and in the meantime, rookie Davis Mills takes over the job under center. And like what Brian said, in the Thursday nighter against the Panthers, he went 19 for 28, throwing for only 168 yards with 1 passing touchdown. Lastly, the Indianapolis Colts fell to 0-2 after the starting quarterback Carson Wentz limped off the field late in their game against the LA Rams. Wentz suffered the injury after reigning Defensive Player of the Year Aaron Donald tackled him and unfortunately rolled onto his ankles. Wentz, who notably returned from foot surgery this offseason, has a history of lower leg injuries that he is currently dealing with. With most teams having to play 15 more regular season games, it'll be vital for these starting quarterbacks to get back healthy before their teams find themselves in too big of a hole to dig out of. In the meantime, that responsibility will fall on rookie quarterbacks and backups to see who can handle the pressure of the bright lights. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Albert. Appreciate it. Thanks for the stories, everybody. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Ben Simmons dilemma in Philadelphia. EBC Sports International will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Hindi rin namin in-expect kasi pagkagising namin, mababa muna yung tubig. Tapos ilang minutes lang talagang napakataas na.
Ang lakas ng ulan kasi, tapos bigla na lang pumasok yung baha dyan.
Ang iniisip ko, makasurvive lang. Hindi naman importante talaga yung mga gamit. Mahina pa ako noon nung time na yun kasi kakagaling ko lang sa sakit. Sa pag-aalala rin, yung sa sitwasyon ngayon, yung pandemic, lalong hindi naging stable yung trabaho ko. Dito sa Zambales, ang hanap buhay ko auto body builder. Siyempre, on call ka lang tapos nawala pa yung company mo. So, talagang mahirap. Harapin ko ng buong buo yung mga susunod pang mga mangyayari. At magkakaroon na ako ng kumpiyansa sa sarili. Nananalangin ako. Sabi ko, Ama, tulungan mo naman ako sa mga oras na ito. Bigyan mo ako ng lakas ng loob. Lakas ng pangangatawan. Maraming salamat po kay Eduardo. Kahit pa paano po ay nabigyan ng kalutasan yung sularin namin.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. This is EBC Sports International. So the Philadelphia 76ers, Ben Simmons, recently told management that he plans to sit out multiple games until a trade is done and finalized. Simmons had an underwhelming performance in this past season's NBA playoffs, scoring only 1 field goal in the last 2 games, 4th quarters in the semifinal round loss against the Atlanta Hawks. Many experts have stated many teams have been involved in trade talks for Simmons, such as Sacramento, Indiana, and the Portland Trail Blazers have showed interest, but nothing is set in stone yet. this is our first topic. So Ken, we'll start with you. Let's get your take on the Ben Simmons situation and where you think he will land.
Ben, what is he doing, man? I just don't understand what this guy is doing, not just to himself, but obviously to his team. I mean, I can't really talk. I'm a huge Laker fan. Anthony Davis did almost the same exact thing, but Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis. As you can see, he's a top 10 player. We'll talk about that later, but Ben Simmons is not. I mean, he has way too many holes in his game, and just being like offensively not capable, especially in playoffs where legends are made, is just unacceptable for someone that has $147 million salary that he has, and he's due $33 million this year. And for him to have the audacity to continue to play this game when his trade stock is just absolutely tanked before he even said that he wasn't going to show up, it's just I just don't know what he wants. It's just like, okay, if I were Ben Simmons and I played as bad as he did, I'd have a private conversation with management, right, and say, oh, look, I don't want to be here, and it looks like you guys don't want me to be here. So I'm gonna play really well to start off the season and trade me for as high a package as you can. So speaking of packages, I mean, like his value is just so low. I just don't know, right? I mean, but if we're gonna just throw some out there, I think Minnesota wants him. You know, I know they want to keep their big three of Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell, but I think they may be willing to let go of D'Angelo Russell and then, you know, maybe put Thibault in there for the 76ers, and then, you know, maybe one of those young wing players from Minnesota. I mean, they can't go any lower, right? I mean, they just got rid of their the GM, so they replaced them with a Sam Presti student. So it may just be something that, you know, Sam Presti has all of his ties when it came to 76ers. So I think that's a pretty good trade partner. But I mean, another one real quick is John Wall, CJ McCollum, and Ben Simmons triangle trade. But honestly, I just don't know. I mean, salaries are very difficult. John Wall is one of them too. But right now, I just feel like Ben Simmons, it's literally like when you know, Dave Chappelle skit, when keeping it real goes wrong. I mean, it's just this is exactly that. This would be that skit in 2021.
Oh man, it's a crazy situation. So Albert, I want to get your thoughts. What trade do you feel makes the most sense right now for Ben Simmons?
Honestly, like what Ken said, at this point, anywhere not named Philadelphia, I think is a good trade for Ben Simmons. But personally, I feel like him in Portland would be is a place where he'd excel, primarily with Lillard, considering if CJ McCollum is part of that trade. One, he's surrounded by shooters, which is something, unfortunately, he can't do. And two, they're a team that desperately needs defense. In the playoffs, it was exposed. They try to outshoot other teams, and that didn't really work well for them. And also, it's one of the furthest teams away distance-wise from Philly, so I feel like he needs to get away from that situation as much as possible. But also, Ken did touch upon this. I think the Timberwolves is a good spot for him as well, too. Karl-Anthony Towns is a big who can shoot. You know, he averages about 6 to 8 3-point attempts per game, which again spaces the floor for someone like Simmons, who again, he can't shoot. And the spacing allows room for him to attack with, you know, Anthony Edwards. If D'Angelo Russell is part of that trade, he can sort of play that Draymond Green point forward role. But the biggest question is the price tag for Simmons, right? It's what Daryl Morey wants, because there has been offers, but it's more or less he's bitten off more than he can chew. But I think Portland and Minnesota are prime examples, or prime teams in which he can excel in.
Absolutely. And Brian had a question for you. So, you know, say they pull off the trade before the season starts, Ben Simmons gone, whether it be to Portland or to Minnesota, like what Ken and Albert just mentioned. Do you think 76ers have a better shot making a deeper run, or possibly winning the championship?
Well, Mike, it depends on what they get in return for Simmons. So let's say, for example, in the scenario where he does get traded to Minnesota for, say, D'Angelo Russell and another wing, like, say, for example, Malik Beasley, I think that they have a much greater chance of winning a championship simply because of the shooting. They will lose out on the defense from what you would get from an all-NBA defensive player like Ben Simmons. But in return, you get the much-needed shooting and spacing that you would need in a team that is so centric on someone like Embiid, a big man who demands so many post-up shots and not a lot of three-point shooting. And I think that's something that would make that team a championship contender. So it really just depends on what they get in return. And hopefully this saga ends soon. It feels like it has been dragging on forever. I've been seeing it on the news for I don't know how many months now. So hopefully we can get something going with the saga to end.
Gotcha. And a follow-up question, Brian, I forgot to mention when I was first introducing this topic that, Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid, in their interviews during that, I believe it was the Game 6 or Game 7, were basically putting the majority of the blame on Simmons. So my question is, do you think they made the right decision doing that? Or do you think they should have took care of this kind of in-house or in private?
Yeah, just like any kind of locker room or chemistry issues, it's best for you to keep that in-house, because all of that it is going to do is just cause more media to stir around that subject and just make it bigger than it actually is. And it's only going to come back to them in their face and make things worse when it comes to chemistry. And it's just going to keep them thinking about the negative side of things and what they want to do. And I mean, Embiid said himself that he loves playing with Simmons, but I mean, that's all he can say. That it's kind of like you're just covering up from what was said in the past. So, I mean, just like with any other story, it should be kept in-house. Understood. Well, hey, sports fans, we'll be sure to keep you posted on the whereabouts, especially when the trade is pulled off. So we're going to stay with the NBA world right now. And Sports Illustrated came out with their top 100 NBA players of 2022. And Kevin Durant led the list as the top choice, while Giannis and LeBron were number 2 and number 3, respectively. Number 4 was Stephen Curry. Number 5 was Luka Doncic was number 6. Number 9 was Anthony Davis. Number 10 is Kawhi Leonard, and the list goes on and on. Albert, I need to know your thoughts, man, on the list. Did KD deserve the number 1 spot?
I think it was close. Obviously, because Giannis is the reigning Finals MVP, and he's the one with the championship this past year. But I think KD is the most offensive, talented player. I mean, in the playoffs, he averaged close to 35, 11, and 5. And he carried, the busted-up Nets team to the 7th game of an Eastern Conference semifinals. If not for, his long toes and his extra long shoes, we could have seen a different NBA champion this year. We got to keep in mind that last year he didn't play at all, coming back from a torn Achilles injury. And even with this year, he's had an injury-laden season where, his hamstring and other ailments where he only played 35 games with the Nets. And in those 35 games, statistically speaking, he's at least matched or even exceeded most of his career averages. The number 2, like you said, Giannis, on that Sports Illustrated list, was even quoted saying that he is the best in the world during their series. I think it was after Game 5 or Game 6. So taking that into account, if number 2 says he's number 1, then he's got to be number 1.
Definitely. I think, for the most part, the top 10 that I see, I don't really see anything glaring from there. How about you, Brian? Do you see anything glaring from that top 10 list?
Honestly, no. From that top 10 list, I think this is what happens.
Top 100 list, sorry.
Or just the entire list in general. I don't see anything too glaring. And I think that's what happens when people don't try to clickbait and try to make things so bad that you're going to want to click on that article and just look through that list and complain. So this isn't really a troll list that you would find with other sites, other sources. I honestly like the list. Really, the only one thing that I saw from that entire list of 100 players would probably be Russell Westbrook in the 30s range. I mean, I feel like he should be just up a little bit higher above some of the players that were ranked above him. Like, for example, Brandon Ingram, Ben Simmons, those players were ranked higher than Russell Westbrook. And he had yet another historic season. So I feel like sometimes they underrate Westbrook because of how much people overrate him. So I think that's really the only glaring point that I saw out of that entire list.
Gotcha. Actually, I take that back for me, actually. I think, honestly, I mean, LeBron should be number 2. I mean, come on. I mean, he's going to be, when it's all said and done, he's going to be one of the best players ever to play the game. I mean, he's the Michael Jordan of our era. So, I mean, he's the top. He should be the top of the top. But, that's just my opinion. Ken, would you make any changes to any people on the list or in the top 10 in general?
Yeah, I mean, it shadows yours, right? It's just LeBron. Yes, he's old. Yes, he's still aging, and yes, 2 out of the last 3 seasons he's had season-ending injuries, pretty much. But I mean, if you're to look at overall best player, I mean, he's still at least number 2. I got to give it up to KD. I mean, just what Albert said. I mean, like, he's had a stellar season. And you also got to put in the fact that this guy is Captain America, and he led Team USA to another gold medal in 2021, right? So, I mean, he's that's a star-studded team. I mean, yeah, LeBron wasn't on there, but it's still required. You're the man when all the talent in the NBA, goes to you when your team needs a bucket. So I think that just shows, the respect that the other players have for KD. I mean, he's long for a reason. But I mean, Albert talked about KD. And Giannis, yeah, he did have an insane finals run. I mean, insane playoffs run, insane season. I mean, it's just we've talked about this endlessly, but the guy still can't shoot free throws other than that game 6, clincher. Yes. But I mean, like, if the crowd is gonna, just like entice you to miss free throws, then that's a big glaring issue. And he can't make threes. I mean, he's really far off, but I still give him props for shooting threes over Ben Simmons, who doesn't shoot the threes, right? LeBron, on the other hand, had one of his best 3-point shooting seasons, and he was still an MVP candidate up until he got hurt last season. And Giannis himself said it too. LeBron is still better than him at this point in his career, and I think that's where the big difference is. And I would, if Space Jam really did happen and aliens were to come to the planet somehow, some way, and they were to give the ball to somebody, it would be, for me, LeBron James still to this day. And that's where I think when I think of the best player, that scenario is where I'm thinking, all right, who would I give the ball to when the fate of the planet rests on this guy winning the game? And that's LeBron James still to this day. One thing I wanted to point out, though, 8, 9, 10 is Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, and Kawhi Leonard. I think those guys would be higher if they weren't so injury laden. I think that's a big thing to note. But I think they're properly placed. But I mean, those 3 guys could be top 5 players if they didn't get hurt so much during the course of a season. So just that point.
Well, I'd still give the ball to a retired MJ to win the game.
If his legs don't break.
That's just me.
And I took that personally.
Yeah, exactly. Cool, guys. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys' takes, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to enter the NFL world. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Mainit at maanghang ang ating pag-uusapan. Ang naglalagablab na sarap ng sili. Matapang ka ba? Matapang ka ba sa anghang? Malakas ba ang loob mo na subukan ng pagninegosyo? Baka sili ang para sa'yo.
Ginigising mo yung mga antibodies ng katawan mo. Yun ang epekto ng sili. Kasi nagre-release yung katawan mo ng endorphin.
Ito po ay 30 varieties ng sili kasalukuyan ng ating napabunga. Eat all you can together.
Almost ng mga menu namin, may sili talaga.
Naisipan kong gumawa ng hot sauce. Then it became an instant hit.
Napakaulan, malamig. Ang sili maganda. So wala kang problema, hindi namimili ng lugar. No? Makisali ko kayo sa pagsisili, malaki ang kita sa sili.
Ako po, si Robin Padilla. At ito po ang unlad. Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Hey, sports fans, welcome back to EBC Sports International. I'm Michael Hudson, coming at you from Seattle, Washington. So this week, we enter week 3 of the NFL season, and there are some huge matchups in store for us. The Bucs travel to LA to take on Ken's Rams on Sunday, while the Cowboys host the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Also, can't forget my and Albert's Seahawks taking on Jolte's Minnesota Vikings as well. Brian, going to start with you on this topic. What are some of the matchups you are excited for this week?
Well, you said both of them already, the Rams and the Bucs. Man, that's going to be a huge matchup. That's going to be must-see Sunday Night Football. I mean, it's going to be must-see. It's giving me shades of the Rams-Chiefs game. I don't know if you remember from back in 2018, quoted as one of the greatest regular season games of all time. I feel like maybe that might happen, and if anything, it's going to be a good game. Another nail-biter that I can see coming is that Minnesota-Seattle game that's coming up. I feel like it's just going to be a repeat of what happened last year. Just another easy one? Okay. But, I mean, who knows? Who knows what happens? Seattle always keeps it close, even with teams who are unfortunately inferior to them, at least during this season. So we'll see how it goes. Those are the two games that I am looking forward to.
Dude, why are you jinxing us, Brian? Come on, dude. You're supposed to be like, dude, Seahawks blowout 41-14. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, that's a jinx, man.
Yeah, I think you just jinxed yourself, bro.
I know. I mean, speaking of Rams and Bucks, I mean, for me, is at the same exact time as the Seahawks game, and I'm like, oh man, should I just watch the Rams and Bucks game because that's going to be one for the ages. But speaking of that game, Ken, I know it's safe to say that you're probably looking forward to that matchup, so we'll talk about that one specifically. What are some keys in that matchup for the Rams to get the victory?
Yeah, so this is probably going to be like the NFC matchup in the playoffs. Like I feel like this, like if both teams are healthy throughout the course of the season, this is probably it. I mean, it's hyped up for a reason. These aren't the same Rams. These aren't the same Bucks that we saw when we went to the game 2 years ago, Mike, where Jameis Winston had an upset against us. Yeah, that was absolutely devastating. I mean, but then again, like these are two completely different teams. I mean, we have Matthew Stafford now, who's absolutely been worth the price tag. Just the first two games, and then obviously you got the GOAT Tom Brady on the Bucks. But I mean, one thing that a lot of people don't know: Bucks are 10 wins, have 10 wins in a row, going from last season. So these guys are hot. They're confident. I mean, obviously they got their Super Bowl, championship. So I mean, they lead the NFL in points. I think it's 39.5 points, but they're also giving up 27 points per game. So the Rams, on the other side, they score 30.5 points per game and only give up 19 points per game. So that's something to be aware that both teams need to be aware of, right? As I mentioned, the GOAT Brady, he's playing better than he did in his 20s, which is absolutely insane. I don't know what this guy is taking. I don't know what supplements he's having. I don't know what kind of trainers he has, but it's whatever it is, it's working. I need to find it. I need to get on that same regimen because, I feel like whatever maybe it's just because he just doesn't take that many hits, and I think that's like, if I were him, I would just go to whoever team has the best O-line moving forward and play until I'm 65. But also, Bucks, big loss. They don't have JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, this weekend. He's taking a rest. Or Antonio Brown. I mean, Antonio Brown, they still haven't officially said he's out with the COVID, with testing positive for COVID, but they also haven't said that he's tested negative twice yet. So that's big loss on defense, big loss on offense. So, but
what is JPP out for? Is he injured?
Shoulder. They're resting it. It's not necessarily like a season ending or anything, but I think they don't want the Jason Whitworth on that shoulder, But I mean, Rams have been daring teams to run the ball with their defensive schemes the last 2 games, which is kind of odd. But I mean, when you have Leonard Fournette on the other side, that's kind of dangerous too. I don't know if that's the best idea. And as far as the wideouts for the Bucks, I mean, even without Antonio Brown, still got Chris Godwin. That guy's an animal. He's set to probably have a big game. But I mean, on the other side, you have Jalen Ramsey, who's probably going to make it at least difficult for him to go for those extra yards. So. Another thing to watch out for is the running game for the Rams. Yeah, they don't run much against the Bucks traditionally, but Cam Akers is already out for the season. Darrell Henderson got hurt this last game, and there's a good chance that he may not play. But I mean, that just means Matthew Stafford can continue to throw the ball, and one of the best connections there is so far in the season is the Stafford-Cooper Kupp connection. I feel like that's going to be key for the Rams to continue to win this game. So either way, I think it's going to be electric. I think it's going to be obviously, I think it's going to be the game of the week, and it may be an early game of the season. So I will be watching.
What's your prediction on the score?
I think it's going to be, like what Brian said, it might be a shootout. So I think probably I'm going to go high. Let's do 44-38. Rams.
Ooh, okay, all right, okay. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that's going to be one for the ages for sure. Looking forward to that. Albert, share with us some of the games that you're excited for. I know you're excited for that Seahawks-Minnesota matchup. You want to talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, just really quickly first, though. Again, Justin Fields making that first career start against the Browns is going to be pretty big. And also, too, OBJ is rumored to be coming back from injury as well, so his return. But again, I'm going to be definitely watching the Seahawks and Vikings. Both teams coming off of, heartbreak losses, with the Vikings missing the field goal and the Seahawks having an utter collapse in the second half. It almost feels like the Vikings are like the 5th NFC West team, the amount of times that the Seahawks face them. It's actually their 4th meeting since 2018. And you know what? Just going to slide this in there. Russell Wilson is 7-0 against the Vikings. Most likely be 8-0 after this weekend.
You hear that, Jolty? You hear that?
One thing I want to touch upon, though, is the Seahawks' lack of defense. The famous Legion of Boom. There has been people throwing out names now. It's now called the Legion of Room, with the amount of space that other wide receivers are getting out there. And that was made evident with Julio Jones last week, just tearing up the secondary. I expect the wide receiving core, of Thielen and Justin Jefferson to have a big game. But again, like what Ken said, I too expect this game to be high offense, with Wilson throwing his, natural bombs that he always does. High offense, not a lot of defense. It's another game that to be watched. Unfortunately, it is the same time as the Rams-Bucks game, so we'll have to do some sort of picture-in-picture to keep an eye on both games.
Yeah, definitely. And, to touch upon the Seahawks game, I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the pressure. We have to pressure the quarterback, because if we don't, they are going to shred us alive. I mean, you saw what they did against Arizona, who had an amazing defensive performance against the Titans the week prior. And so, I mean, Kirk Cousins isn't a scrub. I mean, this guy is going to find people. He's going to put up huge numbers. So I think QB pressure is going to be huge for as far as our defense goes. So
Mike,
we'll see what happens.
Real quick, Mike. Keeping it on NFC West, another 2-0 team, the Niners. Are they going to be 3-0 against the Rodgers this weekend, or what?
You know, for me, I don't think so. I think I think the Packers found their groove last week, and I don't. For me, I don't think the 49ers have played anybody like that good. Yeah, I mean, they played Detroit the first game. Eagles, I mean, are they really one of the top teams? I don't think so. So I think this is going to be like their real first test against a great team and a great quarterback. Personally, I don't think they'll be able to beat them. I think the Packers will beat them pretty easily. How about you guys?
I think in general, this what I've been really impressed with is the quality of game. Even though first week it's been it was like a lot of messy plays, but they've been good games. Other than yesterday's Texans Panthers game, which was kind of like a snooze fest. A lot of these games have been very, very intriguing and good, entertaining football, which I love. I mean, it's just you don't know that you've missed football until football shows up, and it literally takes your entire Sunday. So I got to give it up for the NFL for putting on a good product, but I also got to say, NFL, what are you doing? These refs, these ref calls are just
these taunting. The taunting, they have to go.
I don't want to talk about penalties. Don't talk about penalties.
Just come on. That's part of the game.
What is happening?
I can understand if you run up to somebody and headbutt him and get in his face, okay. But if you're just pumping your fist and not doing, I mean, come on, really? 15
this is the Key and Peele sketch brought to life. It's just absolutely disgusting. They're no fun league.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll definitely keep you posted, guys, on that week 3. But we're going to stay with the NFL on this next topic. So Albert reported earlier some of the major injuries that were going on in the league, especially to the starting quarterbacks. You have Andy Dalton going down, as well as Tua, just to name a few. And this is a blessing in disguise, because for the most part, it gives backups a chance to shine and capitalize on the opportunity. So, Ken, I'm going to start with you on this topic. Which team do you feel is in the best shape with their current backup quarterback?
I mean, there's literally only one answer to this. It's Justin Fields subbing in for Andy Dalton. I don't know what the heck Matt Nagy was thinking, guaranteeing that Dalton is going to be starting. I mean, he's not the Red Rocket of Cincinnati anymore. He's a lot less daring, I think, as far as his throws. And if you're looking for mediocre on I wouldn't say historically, but they are a great defensive team. You're just setting yourself up for mediocrity, and that's should not be what Chicago is setting up their season for. They should go for, if they're going to go for it. I mean, you drafted this guy 11th for a reason, and that's to put him on the field. This isn't 1995 where you rest, where you shelve your quarterbacks for 5 years before you put them out there. It's okay to put your quarterbacks out there on day one. This guy had an amazing career at Ohio State. I mean, and I think he should have the ability to prove himself. Against the Rams, he had 2 throws or 1 throw, and then he ran in for a touchdown. I mean, the guy is an offensive threat, whether he's throwing the ball or running the ball. So I think if there's a time to do it, it's do it now. And I highly disagree with what Nagy said about we're going to take it day by day. Once Dalton's ready to go, we're going to put him back in the starting lineup. What are you doing? Come on, man. Especially if this guy shows out this weekend. He had a mediocre game last week after he subbed in for Dalton, but if this guy even has a slightly above average performance this weekend, then this guy should start for 10 years. I just, you picked him up first round for a reason. Come on, Bears.
Yeah, definitely. Good point. I mean, I think, the talent is there. We've seen it. So I think the best way to improve and get better is to just throw them into the wolves and see what happens. I mean, they have a strong defense. So, I mean, he's not on a terrible team, but I think, there's going to be a huge test for him against the Browns because they have a really good defense. Albert, on the other side of the coin, which team do you feel is in the worst position with their backup quarterback right now?
My opinion, I think it's got to be the Colts. You know, they're sitting 0-2, and we're not talking about Wentz's ankles sitting 0-2 because he did roll both of them. He did come out and say that he felt it right away and it did not feel good, although he did practice today, so he might be limited. The offense has already struggled. In their past game, they got stuffed twice from the 3-yard line and came out with 0 points. The first drive, they were stuffed at the 1-yard line after 4th down. And in the second drive, Wentz did sort of a half pitch that was intercepted. And again, 0 points. So I think, you know what, with an offense that's already struggling and they're taking out their quarterback, who's already had a history of lower leg injuries, it's going to be tough for the Colts to sort of find their footing. And unfortunately, I feel like they're going to start the season 0-3.
That kills me because their backup is from my alma mater, University of Washington. But when I saw him out there, I was just like, oh, what is he? How is he even in the league, man? Like, no arm.
Interception is second play, right? So
yeah, it was so hard to watch. But Brian, getting your thoughts real quick. Which team with their backup quarterback right now has the best chance to make the playoffs?
I mean, Ken already said everything. I mean, Justin Fields is the only backup quarterback that has a chance of bringing their team to the playoffs in their division. I mean, just like what he said, Nagy's got to put him on the field. They got to put the soldier on the field, give him some time. Of course, he's going to have his rookie drawbacks, but the only thing that solves that is more time on the field, and I think that's the only thing that they can do. But so far, his throws have been looking pretty good. In particular, the one that should have been a touchdown from the previous game to Allen Robinson, that would have been an easy touchdown, but it's just all a matter of getting your reps in, timing, and chemistry with the rest of your offense.
Wisely said. Thanks for the takes, everybody. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to tackle our last topic as well as take on our question of the week. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Bago magkaroon ng COVID-19 pandemic, maunlad ang industriya ng fashion design. Metropolitan cities hosted annual shows with designers and celebrities coming from all over the world. 2020 was supposed to be an exciting year for the industry. Ngunit nang magkaroon ng pandemya, ipinatupad ang lockdown sa iba't ibang lugar. Kanselado ang mga fashion shows at marami ring fashion shops ang nagsara. It has been almost 2 years since the outbreak of the COVID-19 crisis with no end in sight. So what will be the future of fashion design and fashion in general? In this episode, we'll find out more about the fashion design industry during the pandemic with our guests from the Fashion Designers Association of the Philippines, Mr. Gil Granado and Jonathan Pagatuan. All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Hey everybody, welcome back to EBC Sports International. So as Ken reported earlier, JJ Redick retired from the NBA after 15 seasons. And I think it's safe to say that it feels just like yesterday when we all saw JJ hit those 3-point bombs at Duke. I wanted to go around the room and just kind of share some of our memories about JJ Redick. I know he's definitely not like one of the best basketball players ever, but I would say he's kind of like a phenomenon because just a lot of people remember him from Duke and just how amazingly talented he was. So I'll go first. So for me, at Duke, I was back in, I think I was like a sophomore or junior in high school, and it seemed like every single day there was a Duke game on ESPN or ESPN2 at the Duke Center. Fans are going crazy. The Duke crazies are just like insane. And JJ was just hitting threes from like half court. I mean, I felt like he was the Steph Curry before Steph Curry came out. I mean, this guy had range and he was just so fun to watch. And I'll never forget that his senior season, it was like between him and Adam Morrison from Gonzaga. And it was just like Adam would drop 45 points one game. JJ Redick would drop like 47 points another game. But I always wanted them to play against each other, but they never did. It would have been amazing to see that, but it didn't materialize. Ken, how about you, man? You want to share a memory with us?
Yeah, Adam Morrison, Laker great. Just kidding. Oh man, no. JJ Redick. What's funny is that one of the craziest memories I have of him is not a shooting memory. It's like literally one of his only dunks in the NBA, which is I think in 2011 during the playoffs against the Atlanta Hawks, and it was just really weird seeing a guy that's just lives outside of the 3-pointer going in for a 2-hand slam. I was like, why don't you do this more? But I mean, I think it's just because he just literally saves all of his energy and time and just his skills for beyond the 3-point line.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I would have to give it to his season with the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, he was just a perfect fit, perfect mold to what they wanted in the offense, centered around Embiid and Simmons. I mean, he was just a perfect complement to them. The only thing that I didn't like was that he didn't stay with them longer. He chased a bigger paycheck with New Orleans. So if they only stayed for at least 1 or 2 more seasons, I mean, who knows where they would be at this point.
Yeah, totally. How about you, Albert?
Yeah, it was a perfect fit with the Sixers, but unfortunately the Raptors had to say something about that with 4 bounces, right? So I'm gonna go with Ken. I'm also not gonna do a shooting memory. I'm gonna go with something a little bit more recent. Shooting a little bit too easy, but the past year with the Pelicans, there was a play where they were facing, I think it was the Celtics, and he was drawing up the court, and he was talking trash to one of the referees, and unfortunately he got a tech. And then in the ensuing play, I know you guys remember this, the ensuing play, he has the ball at the top of the key, goes for a drive and gets fouled, and then as he's passing ball, sort of spins the ball over to the ref, and the ref, for whatever reason, takes offense, sends him a second tee, and he's out of the game. So that's one of the one of my favorite JJ Redick memories. And being JJ, he's a cool-headed guy. Just walks off the court and
he was
shrugs it right off. Yeah, he shrugs it right off. But I mean, the comments in terms of what people were saying about the league, and you can't even pass the ball to a ref with a little bit of spin, you'll get teched for it. That's one of my favorite memories of JJ Redick.
Yeah, man, that's hilarious. But I did want to ask you guys. So as far as his next chapter, I know he has his pretty famous podcast. He has a pretty cool amount of guests. Do you guys see him getting into coaching at all?
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I mean, just listening to how he talks on his podcast, the guy has a great basketball IQ, not just with him playing, but the overall picture. So I think if the NBA and ESPN would be smart if they did what they're doing with the Manning brothers with Peyton and Eli on Monday night and ESPN
so
2. It's probably one of the best things that is on ESPN right now is them live analyzing the game. I think they should do something similar for the for the season or for the playoffs with JJ and maybe someone else. Analyzing the game live and giving their takes in, and then having some former players, current players call in, talk about the game. So I think that would be ESPN or whatever station. Do your due diligence. Get this guy on the show.
Definitely. And so as far as his career goes, yeah, I mean, dude, 15 years went by so fast, man. That was just shocking when you said that, man. It's just, wow. So, well, JJ, best of good luck to you, man. And we'll see what the next chapter brings. So we're gonna go to our last topic, which is our question of the week. So staying with the topic of retirement, I wanted to ask the panel, which athlete's retirement were you the most sad or most happiest seeing? So a pro athlete retiring. So I'll go first again. For me, Michael Jordan, man, all day. First one, second one, third one, all of them, man. It was just like, man, this Adonis is gone. He's hanging him up. But especially that third one, because you knew for sure like it's definitely over. Like there's no chance of coming back at all, even though he could have, but there was just no chance at all of coming back. So I'd say those ones are probably the most memorable for me. How about you, Albert?
I'm going to go a little bit more recent. I'm going to go with Vince Carter. Being a Toronto guy, VC put Toronto on the map. He put Canada basketball on the map. And a lot of the players in the league now from Toronto, the Toronto area, even Canada, will always say it was Vince Carter that sort of brought NBA into their household and brought them to where they are now. His retirement was sort of a very abrupt. He never said that he was going to retire, and it was just the signal of COVID hitting and the league pausing. With the Atlanta Hawks at that time not being in the playoffs, it was very ceremonious in the way that they gave him the last shot, they subbed him in, and he got that three at the top of the key. It was sort of a nice way to send him off for such a great player. Unfortunately, again, he didn't say officially at the time that he was going to retire, but it was sort of implied. So I think VC's retirement was definitely one of the most memorable in recent years for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. He's, man, those Nike Shocks, man. I'll never. Those are probably one of the best basketball shoes I ever had. Amazing stuff, dude. Ken, how about you, man?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go the opposite way, right? So everyone shows love to all these guys doing their retirement tours. And, once they're saying they're going to retire, they have all these presents for these guys. Literally, the opposite of that has to be Paul Pierce. It was the year after Kobe retired, and he was just like, "Oh, you know what? I want some of that." And I think it was September of the following year. He was just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna retire after the season." And then he went and played, in each arena. And the best one to get on him, because so a little backstory with this is that he talked trash about KD joining the Warriors, and so Draymond Green, when they matched up, was just like, "They don't love you like that. You ain't Kobe. They don't love you like that." And that is the funniest thing to come out of Draymond's mouth for Paul Pierce on his anti-farewell tour. I mean, Paul Pierce had a great career, but I think that was just a hilarious way to end, storied career from the Celtics. But he wasn't a Clippers at the time, so.
Paul, what are you thinking? How about you, Brian?
And Clippers legend Paul Pierce. But yeah, just like what Ken said, the opposite of that would have to be Kobe's farewell. People were just flocking to away games just to see Kobe play his final game in that arena. And obviously, it's a great thing to see such an offensive juggernaut, a player with the audacity like Kobe. No one could ever match what he brought to the court. So, gotta say that is one of the best farewells of any sport, really, for someone who is going to retire. And he topped it all off with a 60-piece, and that really showed you how daring that really capitalized the name, the meaning behind what Kobe does, what people think of Kobe, and his name will never die.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Mamba. Rest in peace. All right, everybody. Hey, appreciate you guys joining me tonight. That's it for that's all the time we have for this week's episode. On behalf of everyone on our panel, thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in again next week. Make sure to visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at EagleNewsPH to join the conversation. For EBC Sports International, I'm Michael Hudson. We live in interesting times.
Hindi rin namin in-expect kasi pagkagising namin, mababa muna yung tubig. Tapos ilang minutes lang talagang napakataas na.
Ang lakas ng ulan kasi, tapos bigla na lang pumasok yung baha dyan.
Ang iniisip ko, makasurvive lang. Hindi naman importante talaga yung mga gamit. Mahina pa ako noon nung time na yun kasi kakagaling ko lang sa sakit. Sa pag-aalala rin, yung sa sitwasyon ngayon, yung pandemic, lalong hindi naging stable yung trabaho ko eh. Dito sa Zambales, ang hanap buhay ko auto body builder. Siyempre, on call ka lang tapos nawala pa yung company mo. So, talagang mahirap. Harapin ko ng buong buhay yung mga susunod pang mga mangyayari. at magkakaroon na ako ng kumpiyansa sa sarili. Nananalangin ako. Sabi ko, Ama, tulungan mo naman ako sa mga oras na ito. Bigyan mo ako ng lakas ng loob, lakas ng pangangatawan. Maraming salamat po kay Eduardo. Kahit pa paano po ay nabigyan ng kalutasan yung suliranin namin.